All right, welcome to Keepin the Comic, and we are diving into this new 2024 edition here of this new God series by Ram V, which is following up on the consequences of Darkseid being gone, which basically sets the scene for the universe after this whole traumatic event, which is something, by the way, that we did cover here on the channel in a separate video. But what this has done here is that it's created this universal imbalance that the new gods are more aware of than the humans that are on Earth. And this is so well written, guys. It's really, truly beautiful. Now, the first part here starts off in a space, and it's a little convoluted, but you kind of need this in order to gain context of the story. So it starts off by saying that not since Amasaksu willed the stars into being had they trembled so. And it says, far, far away, past the parsecs of space, Amasaksu had witnessed a great cataclysm. A sundering so powerful it was seen even here, where she had cradled the universe and galaxy superclusters had spilled from their amnion. And it mentions how the great being knew at last that her time had come, how she had kissed goodbye her favorite star. One last supernova before she stilled herself and allowed her end to bloom. Desolation flowered, and her unfulfilled dreams drifted out, past nebulas and newborn galaxies full of ancient worlds where life forms and civilizations blinked in and out of existence. And in one such dream, she had dreamt that when she died, her being, her memory would all eventually return to that from which all of this had begun, to the source. And then we see the words, the old gods died. And then it continues and it says, the source, I theorize, is a product of a self-referential void. The great darkness could only refer to itself through the presence of another. But total darkness can only be defined as an absence of light, of life. The source is thus pure information, the very first knowledge, untainted ideas, incomprehensible because it is all the many meanings of everything at once. And it is the privilege of God to touch it, mold it, speak with it, perhaps understand it, even briefly. And then we get this moment here, which gives us a prophecy of what is to come, and really ultimately what the rest of the story is going to be based on. And it says, when the eldest ichor is split, shall the darkness beckoned fall upon the age of gods, and the dwindling hours shall come hence the last avatar made, for whom await the eternal. With opulences 8 laid upon hands, the great steed shall ride, and on its hooves shall follow the reckoning of all. Now, I know that was pretty dense here, but as we go through, you'll understand even more. Now, we jump over here to the new Genesis, right? And this looks amazing, by the way. And we start off by seeing Fosbok and Lightray doing their morning routine. Now, Fosbok catches up here with Lightray and says that Akala wanted him to deliver a message to him, which was to let him know that the High Father has a visitor. So then we jump over here to the High Father, who is currently reflecting right now. And he mentions how there was a time where he could stand here and look upon countless worlds littered before dawn, how he knew all their enemies, and now he is left with only a few, and how is there a sadder sight than a fractured sky. So then Metron comes in here, the greatest mind of the new Genesis, and appears and starts speaking to the Father. And he says, you feel it, don't you? Darkseid is gone. Perhaps you mourn him more than you'd like, which he doesn't really take a liking to here, the Father. So then Metron, he's like, listen, I come to kind of give you a warning here. He says, according to his source, a prophecy has been made. Darkseid is dead, and with his death, the forces of balance that held all creation have fallen from their precarious dance, he says. And he mentions how new forces, harbingers, may come. Perhaps it was the fear of Darkseid that held them at bay. And now with that fear being gone, a new hand of darkness approaches. Decimation, he calls it. On earth, a child shall awaken. That's that prophecy. A new God, and all they know and hold true shall be changed. And with this child, he doesn't know. Are they going to be a savior, or will they be a herald of doom? He can't tell. So hearing this, the High Father asks Metron, he's like, so what will you have me do about it then? And then Metron replies, he's like, listen, my job is to prophesy. Yours is the hand that holds the shepherd's staff. The question really is, what are you going to do about it? So then the High Father knows that he has to act, right? So he calls for a caller and he says, where is my champion? And in that moment, that is when Light Ray comes into the room and he's ready to serve. But the High Father kind of surprises him here. He's like, listen, not you, not for this task. And then the High Father mentions and says, where is Orion? So then we switch scenes here over to what they call Uxtrum, the moon of the Bloomcar Mining Corporation planet here. And we see these current demons that are working right now. And then in that moment there, suddenly Orion appears and he starts slaughtering them, while, by the way, also screaming, he is dead! I am your reckoning! And just as Orion was about to take out the last of them there, the High Father contacts him and says to him, he's like, listen, my Warbringer, the hound at the throat of our enemies, I have a task for you, son. One you must undertake without question. So then Orion replies, he's like, okay, well, what will you have me do then? Which is when we then switch scenes again, right? And we pan over here to Scott Free, aka Mr. Miracle, and he's tending to his daughter right now, dealing with diapers, and you can see that there's like what looks like godly poop and pee coming out of this girl. Now listen, as a father of 4, all I gotta say is I've been there, my guy. I've been there. So things get better or worse depending on perspective, right? When Orion then shows up. So then Scott yells for Barda, his wife, who's half asleep. And then she starts mumbling. She said, just 5 more minutes, Granny. I'll swear I'll be up. Man, they are not making me miss those newborn days at all. So Scott manages to clean himself up and then he meets Orion here outside. And he's like, listen, I thank you, Orion, for not waking up the baby and also for waiting. So then Orion just gets straight to the point. He's like, listen, Metron made a prophecy here. And he mentions how on Earth, a new godchild will awaken. And the High Father has commanded him to kill him. So then Scott's like, yo, what in the world is going on with you? So then Orion replies, he's like, listen, the High Father, if I'm being honest with you, doesn't really seem like himself. And of course, Scott's like, of course he doesn't seem like himself. He's asking you to kill a child, Orion, like a child. But Orion says, I have never once in my life disobeyed the High Father, which of course we all know is 100% not true. But he does mention that this is the reason why he came to Scott in the first place. He says, you are Mr. Miracle, the only one I would trust to escape me. Can you take the child before I find him and run? So Scott basically answers and says no, because right now he's like, dude, I have a wife. I have a baby daughter. She's not sleeping well, by the way. He's exhausted, feeding, burping, cleaning. It's all chaos. And I gotta say, I just love how they're basically humanizing these gods. Like, it's beautiful. Like, can we not all relate who are parents here, right? But he does mention, he's like, despite this difficulty, I don't want to escape this life. I wanted to escape where I was before in the pit of apocalypse, right? But not this. Like, I'd rather take this. But then Orion presses him. He's like, listen, the High Father has put this task on me. He knows that the son of Darkseid himself will follow his command, even to terrible ends. I will kill this child if I find him. But I know you, Scott. Do not let me do this. This godchild is just like you, an innocent, thrown into the games of gods. If you abandon him, you essentially are abandoning yourself. And I'm like, what type of guilt to throw on him, right? Like, that's not entirely fair. And then guilts him even more. It's like, what about your child? Can you basically look her in the eye? That's basically what he's saying here. And he's like, you and I know that you cannot escape who you are, and I'm giving you 7 days. All right, so after this tense encounter here, we shift scenes one last time here out in India. This is where we see a mother and a father that's running with a child. Now, one of the men here says, B team, head them off to the east and do not let them reach the railroad tracks. And then a little bit later on, an order comes in that says, I want the kid unharmed. Aside from that, You're clear to take the shot. And in that moment, the father is shot and tells the mother to take the child and then run for the tracks. And then in that moment again, we see the words of the prophecy here re-emerge. And we start to see the child go through a transformation. And it says, in the dwindling hour shall come hence the last avatar, the last airbender. I'm kidding, that's not what it says. But it continues, it says, the great steed shall ride, and on its hooves follow the reckoning of all. And then, like I said, we see the child here transform, and the words continue on to say, the new gods are born. And that is where the story ends. Honestly, this was really good, in my opinion. An amazing start here, phenomenal. It's great to see characters, like I said, God tier characters intertwined and intermingling here with what's going on in the Earth realm, if you want to say it that way, and sort of humanizing these characters in a lot of ways too. There are also some clearly high stakes here, both for Orion and for Scott. Like, it's all encompassing, and I cannot wait to see kind of who wins this battle out. Listen, what do you think here? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Do us a favor as well here on this channel. If you can hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, we would really appreciate it. Also, subscribe here if you are new to the channel. And until next time, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye.